Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the PhinManiacs.com podcast. I am your host, Louis Sung, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Chad Ronenbaum. How you doing today, Chad?
Doing good, Louis. How can you not be doing good? Dolphins are in the thick of the playoff race.
Yeah, it's a serious surprise for everybody. I mean, even after the beatdown the Dolphins handed the Jets last week, it's still kind of incredible to think about how the Miami Dolphins are actually literally just one game away almost from getting into the playoffs. Win against the Buffalo Bills on Saturday, and all they have to do is hope that the Broncos lose to the Chiefs, and since I don't trust Trevor Siemian as far as I could throw him, they should be okay. So all they have to do is get the job done, and they can win. But we'll talk about that a little bit in just a moment. Right now, I want to go ahead and introduce our special guest for the evening. He is the former Miami Dolphins tight end, and he's very, very involved with the community around South Florida. And we all are proud of the Miami Dolphins organization for everything they do with that. Troy Drayton, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you having you on, man.
Hey, no problem, guys. How y'all doing?
We are doing good, Troy. We are doing good. It's amazing. I mean, honestly, I don't even know if maybe you and everybody else in the organization felt like the Dolphins would be having a season like this, especially after how they started, because when they were 1-4 and they had just barely gotten by the Cleveland Browns, who right now are the only winless team in football, I honestly thought to myself, oh boy, this is going to be a long, slow rebuild. And then all of a sudden, after the bye week, everything just suddenly clicked. Right, like it's not even just a matter of it's a gradual build. It was like they were awful, and then they suddenly turned out to be great. I'm honestly going to ask you this, and I want to know, like, when you were playing, did you ever witness that fast of a turnaround? Because I have never seen a team switch gears that quickly in all the years I've been watching football.
No, I mean, I've never witnessed that type of turnaround, but I think the mentality of this football team has changed. And I think going into the season, we didn't know really what to expect. We heard a lot of great things about Coach Gase, but we really didn't know what to expect. And, the first 4 or 5 games, the Miami Dolphins didn't get off to a great start. But what they kept doing was they kept believing, they kept working, and Coach Gase, made those guys be accountable for everything, for the way that they practice, the tempo of practice, accountable for mistakes. And, he's a very no-nonsense type of person. You can kind of see his personality is all over this football team. They work as hard as they can, and they go out and they make sure that each and every person is accountable for their own jobs. And I just think when you're talking about the philosophy of this football team, the attitude of this football team, and all the things that we're talking about, it's Coach Gase all wrapped up into one. And he and that coaching staff have did a great job at turning this thing around and righting the ship and getting the Miami Dolphins potentially into the playoffs this year.
And it amazes me that we've gotten this far. And not only that, Troy, this is a situation where this is amazing. Let me say this again. I'm honestly shocked. I have no other words for it other than shocked that this turnaround has taken place. Like, I understand everything about Gase, accountability. That's wonderful. I love the fact that we finally have a head coach who can do that. I love the fact that this guy seems to know what he's doing and knows how to get the best out of his players. Nothing against Joe Philbin. He was a very nice person, and I loved talking to him whenever I had the chance at any community event he was at. But my God, the change is just palpable. You can feel the difference in the atmosphere. This team suddenly feels like a winner, and it doesn't really matter who goes down. The Dolphins suddenly seem to find a way to get the next man up mentality. It's almost Patriot-like in the way they do things now.
No, absolutely. And it's called player development. You have to give their coaching staff a huge credit. You got to take your hat off to those guys, because I think what has happened in the past is that the team wasn't developing the way that it should have. And the backups, when the starters went down, there was a huge drop-off. Now when the starters go down, you have a next man up mentality, and these guys are stepping in, and they're playing pretty well. And I think, one thing that you can definitely say about this team is that they are a team. There's no individuals on this football team. They're working together as a team. And, guys are playing through injuries. I mean, you look what Brendan Alberts has gone through, especially with that dislocated wrist. And, he comes back into the game. And, that's the type of mentality that you need to have going into the playoffs. And when you see guys like that sacrificing their bodies and playing hurt and playing injured, it just makes everybody on your team stand up and say, hey, we got to win this. We got to win this thing, or we got to do it for this person. Or we got to do it for that person. So I think the reality of it is that when you're talking about the player development, you have to take your hat off to all those assistant coaches, because they get everybody ready to play. And that's a tough job, because again, a lot of guys some of the backups don't get as many reps, but they're ready mentally. And if you're ready mentally to play, then you're just putting together all the other things, the physical tools that you have. And I think they've done a remarkable job at developing our players and getting them ready to play. And as you can see, this team has definitely turned things around because of that.
No, I couldn't agree more with what you guys are saying. I know you've even seen it reported the last few weeks about the resiliency of the team, but I mean, you're starting to see it time and time again. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to point fingers at the coach and say it was Joe Philbin, but just some of the Dolphins teams of the past, when they went into Baltimore and took the beating they took. I mean, Baltimore dominated the Dolphins, and I saw a lot of even the fan base and people like, oh, well, there it goes. It was nice having that win streak, but the Dolphins are back. We're not going to make the playoffs. And this is the difference in this team, is they came right back and right back to winning, and not just winning, but just playing solid physical 60 minutes of football. And the thing that's encouraging to me is I haven't seen this team play a very clean game yet. They're still getting lots of penalties, making foolish mistakes, and they're winning football games. And I don't even think this is an Adam Gase team quite yet. And so what's encouraging to me is what this team's going to be in maybe 1 to 2 seasons from now, when he's had a couple more drafts for the players he wants, with the types of mentalities and the types of preparation that he wants. Because I think one of the primary reasons this team started out 1-4 is Adam Gase started out with the idea of, this is how we did it when I coached Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos, and he was wanting to run that no-huddle, really fast-paced, high-execution offense, and the team just wasn't ready. They weren't able to execute a game at that pace. And so I'm just thinking, as these players are around Gase more and in this system more, and we get more and more players familiar with this system, this team isn't even near its peak yet. And so that's the exciting part to me, is it really looks like we're on the upswing, even going into the future seasons. And what Troy mentioned on player development, I can't even remember the time I've seen what they did with Xavier Howard. I mean, the guy missed training camp for the most part. He was a rookie, and he's out there starting against, Brandon Marshall, who's in his own right, it's a very difficult wide receiver to cover all game. And he, for the most part, didn't just cover him, he shut him down. I mean, they were not able to use him effectively at all with him out there. And we're talking about a rookie here that's very limited on the number of plays he's even been in the NFL. And so for the coaches to have him there, I mean, it's just amazing. And it is, the transformation it's just amazing. I mean, the team mentally is so strong. We started the game out 7 down immediately. The Jets came right down and scored, and they shook it right off, and they went on to just win the game with ease. And teams in the past, I don't believe the Dolphins would have had the mental toughness. And I've heard several NFL players that get asked by reporters, how good is this guy? And the most common response I hear from NFL players is, this is the NFL. Everybody is good. Every single player in the NFL is an amazing athlete. And it's the guys that rise to the top, and the guys that are the best are the ones that are able to prepare mentally and handle the mental aspects of the game, how much pressure they have to play under, and how difficult it can be to play on the road in places like that. And whatever their magic formula is Adam Gase and his staff has turned the team around to be just such a mentally stronger team.
No, and I definitely agree. I think, the games that were those close football games last year, you definitely would have said that this Miami Dolphin team would have lost. But I think what has happened, and you've seen this Miami Dolphin team has played some pretty close games, and those close games are getting this team ready to play in the playoffs. Because as you can see, in most of playoff games, you don't see blowouts. You see very close football games. And I know one thing, they might not play a very clean game, but one thing that they're doing is that they're winning. And I'm telling you one thing, if I know Coach Gase, he's going to get those things under control going into the playoffs, because those penalties can be the difference between a win and a loss in any football game. So I know that that's something that they're working on getting cleaned up. And you have to take your hat off to Coach Gase and changing the culture of this football team. You know, I mean, he's making these guys accountable for everything. And, you know, I mean, you know, he's cut some guys, he's got some other talent in, and, you know, he and the upper management for the Miami Dolphins put together a pretty doggone good staff. Not only a staff, but they're putting together a good football team. And that's what you can see happening. And you're right, it is Patriot-esque. Because they're getting guys, they're plugging them in, and they're playing. But that goes to preparation, and that goes to the coaches and the coaching staff making sure that these guys are getting ready to play and preparing them to play. And again, the mental part of the game is a game that I think these guys are starting to master. And one thing that I definitely like is the fact that these guys, when they go into every single football game, it's an all for one and one for all type of mentality. And, you know, again, they're fighting for every single person out on that football field. They're fighting for every single person in this organization. And that's why you've kind of seen this transformation of this team going from, you know, a subpar football team to a playoff contending football team.
And they didn't even have to cheat to do it.
Absolutely.
It's like, we're not that Patriot-esque.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to get that jab in there.
Hey, since we have Troy on, I was going to ask him, you know, I know he obviously played several years in the NFL, and, you know, this is unfamiliar territory for the Dolphins. It's rare we get these sort of games, you know, over the last 10 to 20 years. And, you know, when you were playing, I'm sure you had some games, whether it was a playoff game or a game like this that has strong playoff implications. As a player, do you change anything during the week? Do you just try to say, I'm going to practice the same way I have all year? Or do you focus even more? There's obviously a change in the heightened awareness that the game is important. Do you see the players change anything up when you get into those type of games?
No, not at all. I mean, I think each and every football player knows what's on the line. And you approach this like you approach every single game that you have this season. You can't treat it any differently, because ultimately it is the same game. It's just that, you know, the stakes are higher. And, you know, I think everybody is aware of the position that this football team is in. And everybody's aware of, you know, the chances of making it to the playoffs. But I tell you one thing, they're preparing the same way, they're practicing the same way, and they're doing all the same things that they've been doing all season. So, but, you know, the bottom line is you just have to go out and you have to execute and you have to win. And, you know, that's the name of the game. You have to go out, you have to execute, and that'll help you, you know, win a football game. Again, you're playing for each person beside you. You're playing for those 53 men that are on that roster. You're playing for those coaches who prepare you every single day. You're preparing for you're playing for those weight training coaches who are getting you through your workouts. You know, everybody in this organization, that's what they're playing for. But more importantly, you know, they're giving maximum effort. And the one thing that I can definitely say is that this team is playing 60 minutes of football. Like, you're going to stay in your seat, and because you never know. This team is going to fight till the end. There's no quit in these guys. And I haven't seen that in the last couple of years. You know, I mean, last couple of years, the Dolphins were playing 20-minute games. They were playing 40-minute games, but they weren't playing 60-minute games. This year, from start to finish, this team, even through a 1-4 start, they play 60 minutes of football. And I think that work ethic and that mentality has gotten this Dolphin team through a lot of tough situations, but it's helped them grow together because, one thing that I do understand is that, when you're all in that same situation, the only people who believe in themselves are those people in those locker rooms, and that helped this team become closer.
Okay, so I want to switch gears for a moment. Troy, you mentioned being accountable and playing for each other. Now, this brings up something very interesting because Nicole Roby-Coleman of the Buffalo Bills, he's a cornerback, made some very interesting comments this past week regarding one of their family members. I find it very ironic that they call themselves Bills Mafia because Jarvis Landry, during their first meetup, messed with a member of the family. Aaron Williams, of course, we all remember, got hammered by Landry during a block that was probably a little harsher than it had to be, and it wound up messing with his neck, and now possibly his career might be in jeopardy. Landry apologized after, but the Bills still aren't happy about it. And when one of the Bills media asked Roby-Coleman what he thought about Landry, or maybe if he thought that Roby-Coleman had to keep his head on a swivel because maybe Landry might be coming for him next, that Bills cornerback said vice versa, he should be keeping his head on a swivel. So now, obviously, he said that he's not going to be targeting because he has to say the right thing, and we're not going to mess with the guy's livelihood. But was there ever a moment in a game where you felt like this team is coming after one of my teammates? How do you respond to that?
Every game they're coming after your teammates.
Yeah, but I'm a heightened sense of I'm coming after you because I want you for what you did to someone else.
Listen, everybody is coming after each other. And, most of that is just talk. I don't pay attention to that stuff. At the end of the day, if there's something very blatant, then yeah, your guys are very aware of it, and they're just going to go out and play even harder. And that's what everything is legal between those white lines. And, as long as it stays on the football field, then, that's just part of the game. I think, Landry was playing hard. He's playing the way that he's always played since he's been here. And he's going to block the way that he's always blocking. And he's going to continue to be a hard-nosed football player. And, things happen out on the football field now. If you tell me that Landry did it intentionally, no. Landry did it playing the game. Injuries happen, and sometimes that's a part of the game. And it wasn't a blatant thing. It was all within the rules. And, guys are going to be upset. They're going to look at it from their standpoint. From our standpoint, it was a great block. From their standpoint, they said, well, it wasn't such a great block because one of their guys got hurt. So there's going to be hostility. There's always going to be, guys saying, because we play them twice a year and it's a heated rivalry, there's going to be things that guys do to you during the course of the game that you said, hey, I remember that you did X, Y, and Z. And you just have to go out and play within the rules to get them back. And the best way to get them back is to beat them. That's the bottom line. The best way to get guys back is just to beat them because, everybody knows it's mano and mano. And, at the end of the day, your job is to dominate the guy over in front of you, work within the team structure. So guys are going to talk. Of course, I promise you, there's going to be a lot of chit chatter before the game. There's going to be a lot of lip service, but at the end of the game, each and every person is going to play hard because it's not about going out and getting revenge more so than it is winning the football game. Now, if Buffalo wanted to try to get revenge on the Miami Dolphins, the best way to get revenge on the Miami Dolphins is to beat the Miami Dolphins. And that's the only way that they can avenge that happening. But, again, the Miami Dolphins are fighting for something too. And when you have two teams that are fighting for something, it's going to be a tough, hard-nosed football game. And again, with the way that the referees are reffing the game, they're well aware of all the things that are going on, and they're going to make sure that they keep control of the football game. So I don't worry about guys talking because they've been talking for years. And at the end of the day, everything is legal within those white lines. As long as you do it legally and you're playing hard, who cares about what the other person's talking about?
I agree with Troy there, Lewis. And as I look at people I've watched over the years play football, I can tell you one guy on the team you're not going to intimidate is Jarvis Landry. And I guarantee, I know, emotions are high in those games, but every team in this league wishes they had a Jarvis Landry on their team because he does. He sells out every play. He puts his body on the line just to let his receivers and running backs that are out running in space get an extra opening or get an extra yard. And that is not an uncommon thing. I have seen Jarvis Landry blow up several people, and he's made more plays for this team with the ball not in his hands than people realize as a football player. But it's an uncommon thing in a wide receiver. I mean, you could just look at the highlight films he's had in his short career so far. He has, I don't know how many times, run people over that are bigger than he is and faster than he is. He just is such a willpower, I want to say, to get to the end zone, to make a play, and he plays every single play like that. And yeah, that leads you into situations where, you know what, you might have a hit on somebody and somebody gets hurt. That's why people play football. It is a violent game. It is a physical game. And, just as Troy said, I haven't never seen Jarvis Landry taking cheap shots on people at the whistle. I've never seen him look like he's targeting somebody's knee or their head. I just see him not stop until the whistle blows. That's what I see out of him.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, Jarvis Landry is well aware of all the things that happen out on the football field. I mean, he is one of our best football players, if not the best football player on our football team. And, when it comes to attitude, when it comes to grit, when it comes to playing 60 minutes, when it comes to doing the dirty work, when it comes to running the routes and catching the ball between two people and running people over and blocking, like, that's what you want in your receivers. And one thing I know about Jarvis Landry, he apologized because he potentially may have, ended somebody's career. But it was within the rules, and he apologized for potentially hurting the guy and potentially ending his career. But I guarantee you, if that same situation came up 10 times, Jarvis Landry would make that block 10 out of 10 times. And it's part of the game. And if Jarvis Landry, this guy's been doing this since LSU. I mean, he's been running down on special teams. He does whatever it takes to help his football team win. And you're absolutely right. I think every person wished that they had a guy like Jarvis Landry on their football team, because I think Jarvis Landry is the heartbeat of this team. I think, he fires his team up with his actions. I mean, with the way he catches the ball, with the way he runs with the ball, with the way he blocks. All of those things, he is that spark. And if this team is down in the dumps, this guy's going to – and you need to play, guess who you're going to go to? You're going to number 14. You're going to 14 to help you. If you need a block, guess who's going to be the first person to stick his head in there? Number 14. So a lot of the successful runs that you see downfield, I guarantee you there's been one person who's been consistent, and that's Jarvis Landry leading the way. So I'm glad he's on our football team, and again, he's probably the best football player on our team.
And I would probably agree with that. Jarvis is one of the guys that you count on because he just finds a way to get it done. Now, I want to, since we have you on, Troy, I feel like it's only appropriate that we discuss some tight ends, especially with the stepping up that Dion Sims has done as of late. Now, Adam Gase said that he's been seeing the same from Sims all season long, but I'm looking at it a little bit differently just based on the production standpoint, because it seemed like Sims was very much, I don't want to say invisible because he was used as a blocker, and you don't often see blockers doing their thing unless you look at the tape. But Sims has now suddenly come on as a receiver. Have you noticed any change in maybe his development, the way he does things that is helping with this newfound production that he's had?
No, I don't think it's a newfound production. I think that he was starting to peak right before he sustained that concussion. He was playing this way when he sustained that concussion that had him out for 4 to 5 games last year. And then he got a little nicked up again this year. And now what you're seeing is the guy who is continuing to play really, really well. I mean, he is one of those guys that I knew he can do it all, because he's a guy that is a remarkable blocker on the line of scrimmage, and he's sneaky fast. I mean, he's a big guy that can get down the middle of the field, and people aren't really looking for him to do much, and that's why he's really surprising people, is because you're worried about Landry. You're worried about all the other guys on the outside. So he's finding his way in this offense. He's been playing that way. It's just now he's getting back to being 100%. I think that concussion really slowed his development down. But I think if you look at last year, before he sustained that terrible concussion that he had, he was starting to play really, really well. He was blocking in line. He was catching a couple passes. I think he even caught a touchdown or two before he sustained that concussion. So he was catching the ball really well before that happened. And I think, again, like I said, this year, he got a little nicked up. But I'm not surprised by what he's doing, because I started to see it, and now he's finding his niche, and he's finding his role in this offense. And I think that's great, because, again, Jordan Cameron, we expected so much more out of him, and we haven't gotten as much as we thought. But Sims is he's doing a remarkable job, and ultimately, he's going to be our future. He's going to be that guy, our future guy at that tight end position, and he's going to be leading the way. And I think you're going to see a lot more out of him the more Tannehill and those guys start getting the ball. You're going to start to see more and more of them, because, again, he's a guy that's very talented, and I think now he's starting to find his niche.
Now, how about, I'm sure you remember Charles Clay very fondly. And of course, now he's in Buffalo, so there's that, which is ironic since that's who's next. But while Charles Clay is in Buffalo, we seem to have found a Charles Clay clone somewhat in Marquise Gray. Would you say that is a fair comparison to make?
I would say yes. I would say I would like them to get Marquise the ball a little bit more, because, he's a guy that is really coming on strong. And I like the fact that him and Sims are a great young tandem of tight ends, especially for this football team. Like, that's what you need. You need a guy that can do it all, and I think Gray is in that Charles Clay type. I just like to see him, get the ball a little bit more. But everything that I've seen of Marquise Gray has been positive, and I love our young tandem of tight ends. I think that's what you need. That completes your football team, because you have great receivers, in Parker, Stills, and Landry, and now you need a couple tight ends to complement these guys, and I think we got a pair of guys, especially young guys, who are developing into becoming really, really good football players.
All right, so we're now we have Buffalo coming up, obviously, like I mentioned, and these guys are not going to just lay down and just let the Dolphins win and get to the playoffs. These guys are going to be fighting not just because of the whole Landry thing, but also because they want to ruin Miami's playoff chances like they have for the last several years. It always feels like Buffalo gets in our way somehow right near the end. That's kind of annoying. What do you think Miami's got to do this game if they intend to win? Because I don't think that we can expect another 4-touchdown performance from Matt Moore. That just seems like it's almost unrealistic.
No, I think it's very realistic. I mean, I think Matt Moore is playing really, really well. And I think Matt Moore can take us as far as we want to go. I mean, you don't have to, nothing has to be on the line for the intensity of the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins to play football. Nothing has to be on the line. Both teams can be 0-10, and it's going to feel like a playoff type of atmosphere because it's that type of rival. I mean, my first start as a Dolphin came at Buffalo, and I understood very quickly when I stepped out on the field that this is a very intense rival, and it's one that you know, it's like a civil war. So now that you do have something at stake, now that you have a Miami Dolphin playoff spot at stake, and they can play spoilers, now you know that the intensity of this game is going to take it up to another level. And the subplots with Landry and the other things, I think it also adds to it. But I think what the Miami Dolphins have to do is they have to establish the run like they've been doing. I think they have to play great defense. But I think whoever wins a turnover battle is going to be the team that's going to win the football game. You have to play. You have to be able to control the crowd, and the way that you keep the crowd out of it is to slam that football up in there, and you got to silence them. You got to shut down LaShawn McCoy. You have to shut him down. You have to get to Taylor, and you got to play good defense. You got to play sound defense. And I tell you this. Your punter in playing a field position game is going to be key in this football game because it's cold, number one. And, again, you're going to expect a heavy dose of LaShawn McCoy because he's one of those guys, again, he's going to try to run and cut back and do all the things that he does, and they're going to get the football in his hands as much as they can. But I think you shut down LaShawn McCoy, you play good sound defense, you run the ball, you do all the things that we've been doing. I think we can come out with a win. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, it's going to be like the Jets. But what I am going to say is it's going to be one of those games that's a 28-24 type of football game. And it may come down to who has the ball in the last possession. That may be the team that's going to win.
So since it's so cold, what do you think the chances are we run into Deflate Gate 3?
0. 0.
I don't think it's going to be cold compared to South Florida, but this is not a bitter cold game. Like the forecast is somewhere between 30s and 40s, which I know is cold, but as playing football, once you get going and you generate all that body heat, 30 to 40 isn't that cold of a football game. That's not like going into 0 with 10 or higher wind blowing where it's just miserably cold. So I don't think that cold is going to, after the players get out there on the field and they get warmed up and get amped up and ready to go, I don't think it's going to be a huge factor temperature-wise in this game.
No, it may not, but I think sometimes it does play a part, especially with warmer football teams who are used to the warm, because you put on more clothes than you usually put on. So that comfort level is not there all the time. But you've been playing football for a long time. I mean, guys been playing in the cold, so they know how to get themselves ready to play. But you don't need an excuse. You don't need an excuse. I mean, this is the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins playing, and it's going to be a playoff atmosphere. It's going to be rowdy, and this is as close to a playoff game as you're going to get. This is a type of game that this Miami Dolphins football team needs to go up there, and they need to win. Because we get into the playoffs, we're going on the road. We're going to be in a hostile environment. And, so I think this right now will be a great this is going to be as close to playoff game atmosphere, playoff game intensity that you're going to get until you actually get into the playoffs. So I definitely like to see how this team is going to react. I want to see how they come out and they play. And, again, I expect them to play the same way they've been playing the whole year. They're going to go out and play 60 minutes of football. They're going to go out and play for each other, and they're going to go out and play hard.
Well, I will say this. Chad. It wasn't that long ago that the Dolphins beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the snow in Pittsburgh. So, I mean, albeit barely because Antonio Brown stepped an inch out of bounds, but still, they did win. So, and it was snowing, so that was freaking cold.
Yeah, this game I don't think is even going to be. I've just looked right now on the internet, and it's looking about to be 4.
But you also know it's Buffalo.
So you're above freezing. So if it is,
Buffalo is like Miami in the sense when it comes to rain. And in one instant, it'll go from 40 to minus 10.
Yeah, it could. The good news though is this isn't when we went up there a few years ago when we lost the 2 games at the end of the year to the Jets and the Bills and missed the playoffs.
That was painful.
That team was built to have to throw the football, and the current Dolphins, the way they run their offense is they don't. I think they're in just as good a shape as Buffalo is if the weather gets wet, or if it gets snowy or windy or whatever. If the weather conditions dictate it's going to be hard to do a lot of passing, I think Miami is in just as good a shape personnel-wise and offense-wise as Buffalo is. They clearly have the offense to be able to run the football. And ironically, the player you guys were talking about tight ends is Dion Sims, because he's giving them a element. As the offense, the guys making up these plays, they got to be loving this, because this is a few weeks now. There was a Cardinals game where they got Dion Sims isolated out on a couple guys, and he literally just pushed one guy off him to the ground and broke a couple tackles, picked up an extra 10 or 15 yards. And then in this game, they were covering him with, I believe it was a safety or a corner, but clearly he had some smaller guys on him, and he was not open. Matt Moore just chucked it up, and Dion Sims was just a lot bigger and taller and went up and got the football. And so it's creating a lot more pressure on the defense, because when the Dolphins have Dion Sims on the field, that's an enormous difference in the running game. And then if you have somebody like Marquise Gray or Jordan Cameron in there, Dion Sims is a large man, and he can block. And so he makes an enormous difference in being able to run the football. But on defense now, you start to look at it. If I'm creating offensive play call designs, I'm thinking, so you want to try to cover Dion Sims with a corner, you want to try to cover him with a safety. Well, he's shown now in a few weeks that's not a good idea. He can beat these guys one-on-one with his sheer size and athletic ability. And that just opens up the offense, because it makes it harder to cheat over on Jarvis Landry, or it makes it harder maybe to keep your safeties back on Kenny Stills, or it makes it harder to cheat up to try to shut down Ajayi running the football, because Dion Sims is suddenly a guy that isn't just a big guy that can block, but he can make plays in one-on-one situations. And so it should be really fun to watch some of the counter play calls they make this week off what he's done the last few weeks. Because if I'm Buffalo, you've got to respect Dion Sims now, because the last week he scored 2 really big touchdowns, and you can't just leave him unaccounted assuming, they're not going to throw him the football anymore.
I think what happens is they have to play more honest with Dion playing so well. And, it's almost like pick your poison. Do you got to try to bring somebody down in the box to stop Ajayi, because we're going to run the football. And, how do you guard Landry? How do you guard Stills? How do you guard these guys? I mean, so it's a question where now you have to almost pick your poison. And I think what Sims does is he makes people play honest, because he's playing well now. So, to me, I think now we're able to really spread the field, and we're really able to we're going to be able to take advantage of the mismatches that they have, because again, Sims is too big for a corner or a safety to handle, and he's too nimble for a linebacker. So, he's a mismatch waiting to happen. And again, teams have to play us honest with him playing so well. So you can't double team anybody. And I think that helps us spread the field. but it also creates more opportunities for him down in the red zone, which I think he can make a big impact.
Oh,
I will say
absolutely.
this.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Lewis.
I will say this regarding the rain. I am so glad that the Dolphins stopped practicing in that stupid bubble so much. I mean, all due respect to Nick Saban and what he's accomplished at Alabama, but that bubble really made it harder for them to get used to the weather. I was so happy when Adam Gase made them practice in the rain at training camp. That was just a small moment of joy for me watching them practice when it was wet. Because it's like, get used to it.
Yeah,
You
have to play in those elements. And, Jimmy Johnson was the same way. Jimmy said, hey, the only way we're coming off this field is if it's lightning. But we have to play in the rain, so we're going to practice in the rain. And, I think you definitely see the mentality of Coach Gase. I think the best way to describe Coach Gase is he has a old soul. He's an old school coach. I mean, he's cut from the Nick Saban coaching tree, but I think he has those new, fresh ideas when it comes to offenses and how to deal with players and all of those things. So he's a mix. He's a perfect mix between an old school coach and a player coach as well. So I think the way that he's so even keeled. It's a perfect fit for this football team because he is also a young coach as well. I mean, I know, we don't have a lot of older players. I think one of our oldest players is Cameron Wake at 34, and he's 4 years his senior. So
and he's
I think
playing like
that
he's
combination, 28. That combination of that youthfulness with the old school mentality is a perfect fit for this team.
Well, all I can say is that if it rains, I'm not worried because Miami's used to the rain now, thank God. Thank you, Adam Gase, for at least doing that much. All right, Troy, before we let you go, man, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the community stuff that you're involved with. Like, you see me there, I'm covering it, and I'm seeing all this stuff happening. And you guys, you really do so much for South Florida, and almost all of it just goes like it's a thankless job. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about it because it seems like even with the new winning mentality that Miami has, you guys are still focused on the community. You're not letting winning slow you down. You're not letting the fact that the team is doing well keep you from going out in the community and making South Florida a better place. So talk to us a little bit about the stuff that you do and just let everybody know what it is that makes the Dolphins so special in that regard.
When you're talking about football teams and their involvement in the community, I don't think that there is a team that does more than the Miami Dolphins. I think we have a really good pulse of the community and the needs of the community. And, I think it all starts with leadership. I think it starts with Tom and it starts with, Jason Jenkins. And you also, have another senior vice president in Nat Moore, who is born and bred here. So he has a pulse of the community and its needs. And I think what you're seeing is a team who is deeply rooted in the community and continues to give. And I think that's what it's all about. It's all about giving. It's all about, the players being visible in their giving. And, I think what happens is, you're a huge part of this community. And, people want to see you. They want to know that you care. And, when you see the events that we're at, there are always, current players. There's always former players there. And people know that we really care. We really care about the community. And I can't say that, I'm proud to be, a part of an organization that cares about the community as much as this Miami Dolphin team does. And Stephen Ross is our owner is great when it comes to giving and caring. And again, you can't you can't say enough about the players and their giving. You can't say enough about the alumni players and their giving, our senior management, all the way up. So I think we do a great job, and I think we're the best at what we do when it comes to community involvement in the NFL. That's just my personal opinion.
I would personally agree with that, and I believe I interviewed Lusaka Polite at the alumni dedication that you guys went to, and he said pretty much the same thing, that the reason he stayed behind in Miami was because of all the franchises he ever played for, no team was more community inclined than the Dolphins. And that to me, just like that's so much more important than football. Like, honestly, like, everybody wants to know about football. Everybody's like, I don't care if they do this. Are they winning? It's like, yeah, you know what? The Patriots are winning, and they don't. I don't hear them doing all that much. There was a commercial the other day about how Tom Brady apparently wrote a letter to a kid in the hospital, which is nice, but it's like, why does that get all the publicity? And then the NFL Network discusses this Christmas party that the Patriots held. It's like, why the Patriots? The Dolphins are the team that you should be looking at for a community example. Go give them a call and see what they do. That's just the way I feel about it.
No, you know what? I think, what happens is we do things and we don't care who gets the credit. And we're going to continue to do the things that we do. We're not doing it for publicity. We're doing it because we care. And, if they decide to spotlight us for the things that we do in the community, great. But we're going to still do the things that we do, because that's how that's part of our motto. We're just that type of organization. And, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. They're going to, anywhere he shows up, believe me, there's going to be media. So we're just going to continue to do the things that we're doing here in Miami. And, because we're comfortable with that. So, if the NFL decides to shine some light on us, great. If not, guess what we're going to continue to do? We're going to continue to be out in the community, and we're going to continue to win football games.
And I think on behalf of both me and Louis, Troy, a lot of people, they just watch the games on Sunday. They don't realize how much time between events and your personal time, things you don't have to do that you guys do anyway, especially you and Sam Madison both. I think it's the people that do see it would appreciate it a lot, the things you guys do that have nothing to do with what's going on the field necessarily, but you still put a lot of time into it anyway. I know you probably don't get the credit you deserve, but it is greatly appreciated.
Well, I'm glad that people see that we're doing some great things, and we have a great alumni base. I mean, I think our alumni being run by Nat Moore is the best in the National Football League. So can't say enough about our alumni, our current players, and all the things that we're doing in the community. So I appreciate you guys noticing, and I appreciate you thinking that people should shine the light on us a little bit. Now, I probably think that way as well. I just don't say it, but as long as we're winning football games and we're helping people, eventually people will start coming around and they'll start noticing all the good things that we're doing in the community. But right now, the team is the number one thing, and getting to the playoffs, that's our number one thing. And I already know that we're Super Bowl champions when it comes to all the things that we do in the community. So we probably got more rings than anybody in the National Football League when it comes to community involvement.
And that's what makes you guys special, Troy. Well, I think we're about done now. Troy, I really appreciate you coming on with us and for staying on with us so long. I know we talked a little less time than this, but it's like we get so involved in football and talking stuff that we just kind of let the time fly by. So I appreciate you coming on with us.
Oh, anytime, man. Anytime. Thank you guys for having me, and it's always great that with the things that you guys are doing with the Miami Dolphins. We definitely appreciate it. All
right, Troy. Have yourself a good night, brother.
Okay, man. Take care.
All right, so that was Troy Drayton, former Miami Dolphins tight end and all-around good guy for the Miami Dolphins. We really appreciate having him on with us. So, Troy, not Troy, sorry, I'm still in Troy mode. Chad, is there anything that Troy said that really sticks out in your mind?
No, I think you hit everything on the head. I think, really similar to what the team focus has been coming out and what they say to the media, that it's just one game at a time. That would seem to be right where he felt as well, because as the fans, we have the luxury of like sitting there and looking at, well, if this team wins, we make the playoffs. If that team wins, we make the playoffs. But you got to win that football game, and Buffalo is absolutely not going to lay down. I personally think that Rex Ryan's on the hot seat, and if Miami goes into Buffalo and does what they did to the Jets, that could literally tip him to being gone. And so the players know that, and so there's going to be players on Buffalo that feel like they need to fight to try to help keep Rex there for next year. And so and Buffalo, I mean, despite them being mathematically alive, they're all but eliminated from the playoffs, and so they have nothing to lose. So they want to get this win. They still have the chance of having a winning season, even if they don't make the playoffs. So there's a lot of incentive for Buffalo to come in and give it everything they have. So I said this last week before we played the Jets, this is our most difficult remaining game. And I'll say pretty confidently, I believe if we beat Buffalo, we will make the playoffs. I believe the Patriots will beat the Jets this week. And I see absolutely no reason at all for the Patriots to play hard football whatsoever the last game of the year in Miami, because what is it, 4 quarterbacks now that Ndamukong and Suh, Cameron Wake and company have hurt in a football game?
Well, let's think of it. Okay, so they nailed Ryan Fitzpatrick and brought in Bryce Petty. Then they nailed Bryce Petty and brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick in the next meetup.
Yeah,
they took out Big Ben.
All you got to do is put that video clip of Bryce Petty getting hit simultaneously by Suh and Wake. And if I'm a Patriots fan or coach and they've got the number 1 seed locked down, why in the world would you want Tom Brady in there, especially if the Dolphins need the game to make the playoffs? Why in the world would you even have Tom Brady in that game? Because they have nothing to gain by winning it. And so I really don't see, unless the Patriots lose and they need the seed, I'm
pretty sure they've already clinched home field advantage.
Well, they haven't clinched the number 1 seed. They've clinched a first-round bye. So in theory, if they lost the next 2 games, and I believe it would have to be the Raiders won the last 2, then the Raiders would pass them for the number 1 seed, which is significant because last year the Patriots lost to Miami in that scenario, and then they went in and lost to Denver in the AFC Championship game, and that was a close game, and you have to wonder if they had beat the Dolphins that last game, they had the number 1 seed, if the outcome would have been different. But with that being said, again, the way the Jets played this last week against the Dolphins, I just don't see the Jets having much chance against the way the Patriots are playing right now. And the Patriots want that game because they want to have that game against the Dolphins not be that important, because that literally gives the Patriots 2 full weeks to rest who they want to rest and work on game planning for their first playoff game, which is a significant advantage. So again, this game against Buffalo is probably the hardest game of the season for the Dolphins on how hard the team they're going to be playing. And Buffalo is not a bad football team. So Miami's going to have to really play well to win the football game. But again, I think this is for the playoffs. I think if they win this game, they'll make it. One other little tidbit I want to throw in there is if it did happen to play out where the Dolphins beat Buffalo and Denver lost, giving Miami a playoff berth, that is a big, big advantage for the Dolphins more than people realize, because they can go into that game against the Patriots next week and they can rest a lot of their starters, essentially giving them kind of a bye week as a wild card team. You know what I'm saying? So they won't have to go into the final week having to risk some of their key players. You know, there might be players like a Brandon Albert who physically could play in that game, but if they have the playoff spot clinched, I don't know why you would play him. I think I'd want to rest him for the week and try to let him get as healthy as possible for the playoff game. So with that being said, there's a lot riding on this game. The fans know it. You can sense it in what's going around in the social media and in the mainstream media. There's a lot of tense people, a lot of people watching the game, a lot of other teams, fans watching the game because they need the Dolphins to lose to have a chance. And so this is a big one. So I'm excited. This is the the kind of games as a fan you want to be able to watch. And for the Dolphins, it's almost like it's been forever since we've had a game this caliber.
The thing that bothers me still, I mean, besides the defense, because the defense has been an issue all year long. Like, it's like I know Troy said you got to play good defense. Well, Miami hasn't really been like balling out on defense. The secondary, they've made plays, they've made turnovers, they made big plays, but the problem is that in between the big plays, they've just kind of been run over a lot. So that worries me. But the biggest thing that I have a problem with, and this is not so much a criticism, that is just a paranoia. It's Matt Moore, Chad. I mean, he did. Like, look, I can't argue with the results. He threw for 4 touchdowns and only 1 interception. But the problem is that, like, I know Troy said it is realistic, but I just can't see the guy doing that again. Like, gunslingers like Moore, guys who don't have like any regard for what it is that he's doing, and he just lets it go. That is grounds for a very, very dangerous game plan, and I just don't know if he can do it. I have to be honest, like, he got the 4 touchdowns, but if we're totally honest with ourselves, a lot of those throws that he made, like, Matt Moore's cannon has quietly turned into something more of a squirt gun. So I'm not impressed with his velocity, and even the pretty deep ball that he threw to Kenny Stills for that touchdown, that throw that I was impressed by second, third, fourth glance, that throw was starting to tail off near the end too, and that worries me because that tells me that this guy has the mentality of a guy who wants to go deep on every play, but he does not have the arm to match it, and that makes me worried because that just means there's going to be a lot of jump balls, and I just don't know if I trust the Dolphins receivers enough to win enough of those balls so that it doesn't come back to bite them.
No, you know what, Lewis? This actually is not a bad matchup, and definitely not a knock on Tannehill. Tannehill has the arm strength to make throws Matt Moore can't make. That's just a reality. Is Matt Moore probably has an average to maybe even a little under average arm by NFL quarterback standards.
He used to have a really good one, though.
Well, I'm not saying Matt Moore has a bad arm. I'm just saying he can't make the same throws that Ryan Tannehill can make because Ryan Tannehill probably has an above average arm for standards on what kind of velocity they throw on some of these deeper routes that are like maybe a 15-yard route. But I also believe Matt Moore does throw a better deep ball. Ryan Tannehill has proven that he can throw the deep ball. That it was a myth that he couldn't. But Matt Moore throws a pretty deep ball. And I think you probably remember me last week saying the Jets do not want to blitz Matt Moore. And the same thing goes for Buffalo. And that's a good matchup because Rex Ryan is a blitzing defensive coordinator. He wants to attack the quarterback. And that matches up well for Matt Moore because Matt Moore is, by mentality, he likes to throw big bombs down the field. That's what he likes to do. And nothing opens that up more than the blitz. And so the way, if I'm playing defense and if you really want to defend Matt Moore, you play a bend but don't break defense and you make Matt Moore beat you by leaving the underneath routes open and make him complete 14, 15 passes down the field to go down the field. Don't let him throw a big bomb down the field to Kenny Stills or Devontae Parker. Make him execute multiple plays in a row because Matt Moore will make some throws into coverage he shouldn't make. And so the question comes down to how disciplined is the Buffalo defense going to be? Because Miami's clicking right now. They've got a lot of weapons. Devontae Parker's gotten healthier again. Kenny Stills is playing the best season of his career, and he's had several big plays down the field in the last few games. Jarvis Landry obviously is Jarvis Landry. We've got a healthy Ajayi right now who's playing well. Dion Sims has come on. So from a play calling standpoint, they're a very difficult team to defend right now because they have a lot of players that are playing well. And so really Matt Moore just has to come in and execute the offense. And if Buffalo comes after him and does things like blitzing corners and safeties and linebackers, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Matt Moore throws up 4 touchdowns because when I was telling you last week, if he sees somebody, especially like a Devontae Parker, Sims, Kenny Stills, if Buffalo has matched up with those guys down the field one-on-one, Matt Moore's read, that's open. Ryan Tannehill's read is that's not necessarily open. I like to throw it to guys that got separation. Matt Moore's is like, oh, I've got Devontae Parker going down the field one-on-one. That's open to me. I'm throwing it up. And so that makes the whole philosophy on what Buffalo has to do on defense change because they got to be really careful if they want to stack the box because Matt Moore is more likely to go down the field, and they got to be really careful blitzing him. And I just don't know if it'll be in Buffalo or Rex Ryan's mentality to just be patient on defense, focus on making tackles in front of you, let them complete short passes, and make them execute a series of passes down the field. I think it's going to be kind of a wild game. And so Troy's right. Miami absolutely can't afford the turnovers. And they haven't had a really clean game that much this year. And so I'm hoping Troy's right, and I'm hoping that they're coming along and getting better and better and execute. Because if Miami just has some of these games where they don't have some of these critical false starts or critical late hit penalties or turning the football over, some of the stuff that make the game more sloppy, then they're that much of a more dangerous team yet. So they really haven't peaked. And so I'm hoping this is the game they do it, because kind of just as what Troy was saying, this is the game that's different. This is the game that's a playoff caliber game, and it's a game that Miami has not had success in for a long time. And if they want to be a team that's turned the corner, they need to go into Buffalo and win this football game.
And that's true. But okay, so now I have to ask you this, because you just said that Matt Moore throws a better deep ball than Ryan Tannehill, and that's what Rex Ryan said. But here's my thing, Chad. I don't feel like I can say that. I feel like with the added velocity Tannehill has, and plus he's built on his accuracy so much, and he's found a way to get the ball to the guys that he wants in the magical in stride formation that people were so upset that he couldn't do with Mike Wallace back in 2 years ago. And I feel like the only thing that Matt Moore has over Tannehill is that, I don't know, maybe he just goes through his reads faster, and he's just more willing to pull the trigger at all. I guess that's what he has going for him, but I don't know if I can definitively say because of those two factors that Moore throws a better deep ball. He's more willing to throw it. I don't know if he just throws a better one.
I think he just has a better touch for it. And again, Tannehill throws a good deep ball as well. Tannehill just... His throws are higher velocity than Matt Moore's. I don't know how else to say it. You can just see it in the football games, and it's pretty rare you see Ryan Tannehill passes kind of float, and you see Matt Moore. You were even talking about that earlier, Lewis. It's like, oh my God, that pass is hanging out there forever. And so, but Matt Moore, I don't know that he reads defenses quicker. Ryan Tannehill is actually exceptional at reading defenses, but Matt Moore doesn't have any problem making decisions, and a lot of quarterbacks struggle with that, and they end up taking lots of sacks or throwing footballs away because they just, at the speed of the game, they just don't feel comfortable getting that ball out. And Matt Moore has no problem getting the ball out, but you got to just look at the style of gameplay. And Matt Moore is much more likely to throw 4 touchdowns and 2 to 3 interceptions, and Ryan Tannehill is much more likely to throw 2 touchdowns and 0, maybe 1 interception. And that's just because Matt Moore, like I said, if he sees his guy down the field one-on-one coverage, to him that's open. He's going to put it up. And he's going to put some air under the ball, and he's giving his guy a chance to go up and get the football. But sometimes the other guy is the guy that goes up and gets the football. So it's just it's a different style of quarterbacking. But, Brett Favre made a career out of it. He did that stuff all the time. I saw Brett Favre throw so many bad passes into coverage that his guy went and got that I was just like, man. But you know what? He made some big time plays. So the big critical key is, and I think the Dolphins have this under control, is if the game situation changes. If Miami suddenly somehow going into the early fourth quarter and they're up like 14 points or even 10 points, that's when you got to rein Matt Moore in and say, hey, look, we have this game in good control right now. We absolutely cannot afford to throw a critical interception or a pick six or something like that. And that's where you got to kind of rein him in and say, we only want some real low risk passes right now. We're fine punting the football if we need to. That's going to be the critical aspect with Matt Moore. And that's the difference between a guy that when it's, 7-7 in the first quarter and he's on his own 40 and he throws a bomb down the field, the other team intercepts that and we tackle them, fine. You know what? That's not that much different than a punt. I'm okay with taking those shots, but you absolutely don't want to be doing that if you've got a good lead and you're in a good position later into the football game. That's when you want to be safe with the football.
I don't know, man. I guess it really just boils down to what do you consider to be better for deep balls. I guess you have your point and I have mine. I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree on this one. Otherwise, we'll be here all night.
To clarify, Louis, I believe Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback, and I believe Ryan Tannehill has a much bigger route tree that he can throw than Matt Moore can throw because of his arm strength and velocity. I'm just saying Matt Moore likes to throw a ball that puts some air under it and lets guys go up and get it. And Tannehill is more of he likes to hit a guy in stride with a ball that doesn't stay up in the air too long. And so the pros and cons, the pros is Matt Moore's deep ball is easier for guys to jump up and catch. The cons is he usually does put more air under the football to get it where he wants, and that gives the team's defensive backs a better chance to get over there and try to intercept it. That's the best way I can describe it.
All right. So now here's the other thing, the defense again. Okay, so here's the thing, and I'm looking at the injury report right now. The Miami Dolphins, they have Isa Abdul-Quddus. He is currently he practiced fully today. And then Kiko Alonso, he practiced fully. Jermon Bushrod practiced fully. Now here's where it starts getting a little iffy. And I feel like this is something that we should have noticed all year long, and maybe we have been, but we've been blaming it on other stuff. Like, we all know about how I write for Brandon Howard at the Dolphins Wire. Like, I kind of help him out there. And he's told me all season long that Jelani Jenkins has been playing injured. And he has not just been playing with a little dink in here and a dink there. No, he's been playing hurt all season long. And this is the thing that confuses me, Chad, because it feels like Adam Gase almost, and I don't even want to make this accusation because it feels like he's been doing it with everybody else. I don't see why Jenkins would be special. But if you can't play or if you're not doing well, Gase benches you. So the question I have is, why does Jenkins keep getting the benefit of the doubt? Are the other linebackers in the team just so awful? Is he so unwilling to trust Neville Hewitt, who I think has looked better than Jenkins at pretty much every turn, that he's willing to put Jenkins back in there time after time, banged up, and it feels like every time he tries to make a tackle, he looks like a statue falling over, and he doesn't make the tackle. I don't know what it is with Jenkins. I don't know why this is an issue for Gase. I'm confused, Chad. I wonder if maybe you have any thoughts.
Well, when he's healthy, which is a big when he is healthy, because Jelani Jenkins has had a rough at least season and a half now where he's just been battling one injury after another. But when he is healthy, his speed allows Miami to run defenses where he can cover tight ends, even running backs, and Neville Hewitt can't drop into coverage and do the same things that Jelani Jenkins can. With that being said, I agree with you, Lois. Watching the game film, I think Neville Hewitt is a much better tackler, and he's a physical football player, and he just seems to keep making plays out there when he's on the football field. Now, coming down to the game, with Jelani Jenkins, I think the critical component is Kiko Alonso, because if you put Neville Hewitt in there and you put Kiko Alonso in there, Kiko can do a lot of those things because he also has very good speed at the linebacker position. So Miami can use Kiko Alonso in coverage a lot more than they could, say, Mike Hall. Where it gets dicey and where I would get concerned is if we got Mike Hall playing middle linebacker and Neville Hewitt playing weak side linebacker, because then we have some speed deficiencies at our linebacker, and that makes what we can do on defense a little more limited. If, say, we want to blitz a linebacker, we want to blitz a safety, well, that's all fine and good if you can have a linebacker that can drop back and sometimes, but one of those two people need to be playing healthy in Kiko or Jelani. If they're both out, we just don't have the team speed at the linebacking core. So I'm not too worried. I think Kiko's going to be playing, and so I think we'll be just fine with Neville Hewitt in there playing in his place. He's done it a lot the last year and a half, and I think he's done well enough. We don't have a major deficiency in there, but I think the reason the team keeps coming back to Jelani is when he is healthy, it just gives them more flexibility to do more things on defense.
But he hasn't been, and that's the thing, Chad. It's not that he's missing tackles. It's like the dude looks like he makes a tackle, but he falls over before he actually gets there, and he's like on one knee because he couldn't get there or something. It's not that he missed the tackle. It's that he's just not there.
He looks healthy. Yeah, you're right.
Which begs the question, why does Gase keep going there? It's like, again, it falls back to, do you have so little trust in Paysinger and Hewitt that you keep throwing a banged-up Jelani Jenkins in there hoping something better happens? That's the thing that's bugging me.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. It's so hard to tell who's healthy and who's not healthy. I don't know what Julian Jenkins' personal health situation is by each game, but he hasn't looked good this year. I would agree with you on that, Lewis. He hasn't. I can't think of many times he's made impact plays this year and at linebacker. And I have to go back to almost 2 years ago when I remember he doing some really, really impressive things in coverage. That's what I remember him doing, where he was dropping back, as much as 10 and 15 yards and making plays in coverage, which is hard to do from a linebacker position. But yeah, I really don't know. I don't have all the reasoning. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me if they're playing him injured and he's just not performing very well because he is injured. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, hopefully some good things happen. I think we're gonna end the show pretty soon. But first thing as first, I want to make sure that we get a moment to get our predictions in. Chad, I want to hear your prediction. Dolphins, Bills, playoffs on the line. What happens, and is there hope for the future, at least the short term?
I'm feeling this is one of those games where historically my intuition is to be like, this isn't a game Miami wins. This is a game they typically lose. This is a game where we go up to Buffalo, we just get beat physically, and they lose the game. But it just feels different right now, you feel the atmosphere with the team. You don't feel a lot of panicking. You feel like the confidence level is high, and more importantly, I feel like offensively, other than Pouncey being gone, we're pretty healthy right now. We've got our starters in there. Buffalo's got some areas where they are struggling right now, and again, this is a game where we've been on the other side of this, where you're 7-7. Fans and management and everybody's questioning whether your coach, it's time for them to go. And in those games, if a few bad things happen, if suddenly Buffalo's down 14 points because of some turnovers or something like that, those teams tend to just start to self-implode. And so I'm hoping that Miami can get out and get on Buffalo early and put them in a little bit of get a touchdown or two up on them and put them in a little bit of a hole, because I don't know if Buffalo is going to respond to that in this situation, because their season isn't the same as the Dolphins right now. So I don't know that those things kind of play forth back in my head, but I feel like this team's on a roll right now. I feel like they're playing better football than Buffalo. And I don't feel like they're going to have any kind of a letdown in this game. So I think Miami's going to win it. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk whatsoever. And I'm going to say Miami 21, Buffalo 17.
Well, before I give my prediction, I'm going to tell you a little story, Chad, and the rest of you as well. I had a dream the other night, and I told my family this when I woke up this morning. And, it almost felt like it was a bad omen in a way. And I'm hoping that I'm very wrong and that this is just me being paranoid, but it feels so convenient that on probably the biggest game of the year, this dream happens to come up. So I'm playing Madden, right? And my brother, I make the decision because my brother's a good gamer, but he doesn't like to play the football Madden games. So I give him the controller for whatever reason, and suddenly the score is like 50-30 something or other, and it's the 49ers who are beating the Dolphins. And that means Colin Kaepernick and all that garbage. So doesn't mean anything going in the long run, but that's just what happened. So suddenly, just as I decide I'm going to take back control, suddenly the game is real, and I'm playing in my front yard. And suddenly I have a whole bunch of random people there that I've never seen before acting as my teammates, and I'm about to try and block a field goal. And so I run, the ball is snapped. I run to try and block the field goal, and instead of having to do anything, the defensive line causes the guy holding the ball to jump back, stand up, and kind of wobble on his feet for a minute. And I'm like, okay, this game is over. I got this. But I can't move. I'm stuck. And the guy's just wobbling there, and I'm trying to will my body to move, and I can't move. Then suddenly the dude runs around me and runs the other way for a touchdown. And I grab another ball that happens to be on the ground, and I'm upset because there was another ball on the ground that I'm trying to show the referees, like, look, there's another ball on the ground. It's like, are you kidding me? This isn't fair. And so, of course, we lost that game because the score was like 60-30 something or other. So I'm hoping that's just me being weird with my dreams, because that happens sometimes. But I don't know. It almost felt like a bad omen just because of the timing. I'm sure that has nothing to do with it, but it's just me being paranoid. But I don't know. Maybe it's the injured Dolphins fan in me overcoming the logical journalist. I'm not feeling good about this matchup. I'm almost feeling like there's still some old Philbin Dolphins in here, and Gase hasn't finished the purge just yet. It almost feels like I'm not going to be a happy camper by the time the game is over. So I don't like to make this prediction, but I'm actually going to say that Miami's going to lose this game. And I don't know. It almost feels like I'm thinking they're going to lose by like 10 points, something along the lines of 17-27 for Buffalo. I'm hoping that I'm wrong and that my dream is just me being paranoid. I will be so happy if my dream is just me being paranoid, but the timing of it all just drove me nuts.
Well, we'll find out Saturday. That's what it's all about. So I historically, I feel you. I feel like this is just a game. Historically, the Dolphins are not going to win. It's in Buffalo. It's going to be a little cooler. Buffalo's going to come out trying to win it for the coach, and this is a game Miami typically would lay down and not win. But I don't know that Buffalo is the more physical team anymore right now. They don't have that defensive line they had over the last few years, and we're the team coming in that has Ndamukong Suh playing, at a crazy level right now, and we're the team who has two up and coming corners on the outside that are dangerous to throw deep balls down the field on, and I just feel like we're the better team right now, and so as long as Miami doesn't get in their own heads, I think this is a game they should win.
Well, yeah, based on everything we've seen, I agree with you. I didn't freak you out with my dream, did I? Because that's like something that I've never done on the show before.
No, it's everybody has their own way to prognosticate, I should say. So anyway, it's gonna be fun.
I'm not trying to say I'm not interpreting dreams here. I'm not Joseph. So I'm not. Good grief. I really hope that this dream is nothing more than just a freaky dream of me being paranoid, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too cautious here. I'm not going to say the Dolphins are going to win this game. I'm just going to hope that I'm wrong and see what happens. And if it so happens I need to eat crow, then so be it. I will gladly take it. In fact, give me a fork, I'll eat it. In fact, don't even give me a fork. I'll eat it whole.
Well, I hope you do, Lewis. I hope you do.
All right. So before we sign off, I want to ask you something, Mr. Ronenbaum. Does Mason play dodgeball?
He does not. My older son actually does play it, though.
Is he good?
I think he's all right. I mean, I'm not a professional dodgeball scout, so I can't say that definitively, but he seems okay to me.
Well, we're going to find out if Cameron Wake and Ndamukong Suh are good at dodgeball, apparently. Because that's going to be something happening at the Pro Bowl this year, Chad.
Oh, they're doing dodgeball?
They're doing dodgeball. I honestly couldn't believe it. I see the announcement on Twitter that the Pro Bowl is going to feature a skills challenge, and I'm thinking, finally, they figured it out. Yes, 40-yard dash. Who's the fastest player in the Pro Bowl? Yes, let's see who can bench press the most. Let's see who has the best footwork drill. Yes, this is exactly what we want. The competition between some of our favorite pros to see who's got the best skill. And then I see the next thing. Go and play dodgeball.
Well, I would think Ndamukong Suh would be easy to hit. He's so big, but we'll see.
I mean, Chad, dodgeball. Are you serious? Like, just when it looked like they were going in the right direction, they're come out with that.
Yeah, the Pro Bowlers. Well, obviously he's a rookie, not going to the Pro Bowl. But if we're doing dodgeball, I want Jakeem Grant. I'll take him.
He's a substitute special teams guy. It's like let's throw Grant in there. He'll be fine. He can't hit him. I'm
he's little and he's quick. He'd be very hard.
Yeah, he's little and he's quick. I don't know how good of an arm he has, but he's little and he's quick. Mighty Mouse to the rescue, representing Miami, gonna win the dodgeball tournament.
It'll be interesting. They're trying to come up with things to keep the interest level there because football, it isn't like baseball or basketball where they're just such a lower risk of injury sport. And so if you went and you played a competitive Pro Bowl game, people would get hurt, and that leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth if you have your star player at the Pro Bowl and he tears his ACL or something. So you can just tell they play that game in a manner that they try to prevent serious injuries. They try to have fun, and that makes it hard because everybody knows that watching, and so there's no drama on who's going to win the game. It's more of just fun to watch the players that you like just go out and kind of have a good time.
Oh, it'll be entertaining, but it's not going to be entertaining in the fact that I'm excited. It's going to be more like this is so absurd that I can't help but watch kind of a factor. It's like I hope that their skills challenge is actually going to still happen, like 40-yard dash and stuff, because that's what we want to see football-wise. But dodgeball? I mean, you can get hurt playing dodgeball, too. I've gotten hurt playing dodgeball. I would jump and miss and dodge a ball, and then I would land awkwardly, and I'm done for the day, and I'm going to be hurt for a couple of weeks. So there is that. So yeah. I'm just saying. So anyway, just wanted to get that out there. Dodgeball in the Pro Bowl, folks. I feel like we've seen it all now. At least they're going back to AFC, NFC format. There's no more street football draft picking.
Yeah, I like that. I like the conferences much more.
All right. So that's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for joining us. And again, a special thank you to Troy Drayton for joining us. And the interview will be up on our YouTube as a separate thing. And then, of course, we'll have the live show on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud by tomorrow. So thank you all so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed. And we'll see you all next week for another episode of the PhinManiacs.com podcast. Good night, everybody.